All right, and I am back. I figured out how to play this video finally. So let's get into it. So basically, we're talking about this transracial Korean non-binary individual. Ooh. Let's watch this. Let's evaluate and let's talk about it. All right. Figuring this out. Oh, I need to transmit. There we go. I guess I'm going to have to play the sound. You're going to have to get the sound from my mic. Ready?
What you are essentially saying is that you can change your race, and you can't change your race.
I'm Korean. People need to accept that.
Tell me how you racially identify.
I identify as Korean. I used to live in Korea. I was living there for 1 year. I love the culture, I love the history, the people. I've put myself through a lot of pain. I've had a lot of surgical procedures to have more of a Korean aesthetic. I spent a lot of time learning the language, learning how to cook Korean foods. I came out earlier this year sharing that with the world. People didn't really get it. Not everybody will understand straight away, but I hope over time people will be kind of more accepting with me.
Oh my God, her face. Why is she doing that? She's like, yeah, people don't understand. She's expressive in the face, just like me, just like me, just like me. Let's keep going. Man, this is annoying. I really want this to work out. I know there's a lot going on here. I'm trying to make it easy to consume. Easy to consume. Yeah, that would be easier. Ooh, perfect. Perfect. All right. How's that? Better? Let's keep going. Maybe I'll take it down. How's that? No, top is good. All right. All right, how's that? All right, let's keep going.
Transracial does not exist, and I think it is very, very harmful for us to push the narrative that it is possible to switch races.
I was not happy the way I was. So I went to Korea and I had the most incredible experience of my life. It changed me, gave me happiness, and people have no right to take that happiness away from me.
All right. First of all, I think it's just her saying transracial doesn't exist. I don't know. Like, I think it's insensitive. And look, I went to Korea and I had a life-changing experience in Korea myself. So like I can relate with him in a way. So I think, her saying transracial doesn't exist. I have one motto in life. Do whatever you want with your life. Do whatever on earth you want, as long as you don't harm people, right? Nobody is harmed by whatever you're doing in your life. Do whatever you want in your life. But don't expect other people to acknowledge you. You cannot. So him saying that everyone has to accept me, no, that's where you're crossing the line. When you're trying to force people to accept you, you can't do that. I mean, we can see that as Black people, we can't force America to accept us. Look how long it's taking us. They just shot, this guy just killed 10 Black people, this terrorist. We can't force people. So don't force people to accept you. That's it. But fine, you want to be transracial Korean? If the Koreans are fine, no, you can do it if you want to. And I talked about this in the previous video, my previous live. But let's keep watching this entertaining mess. This is annoying. I'm going to have to figure out how to fix the sound in this, but here we go.
I can't sit up here and say, oh, I'm suddenly a white woman. And if you as a white person say, oh, I can be Black or I can be Korean, and I can't swap and benefit from the privilege that you benefit from, then it's clearly not an equal exchange. Because whiteness in this country has been set up in a way how I interact in the police, how I interact with the medical system can result in me dying.
Guys, doctors are to Black women what police officers are to Black men. I can't remember the statistic, but it is crazy. The amount of Black women, your chances are so much higher of dying when you're a Black woman. So everything she said, I totally agree with it. I totally agree with it. At the end of the day, but he can feel however he wants to feel. I get where he's coming from. She can't tell him how to feel. But my thing is, don't expect anybody to accept you just because you feel a certain way. That's my thing. Nobody owes you anything. And that's what I want to get across to him and also to other trans people as well. If people don't want to accept your transness, you can't force them. So stop forcing people to do it. Just live your life. Be independent. That's just my take. But let's keep going.
Appropriation essentially dictates people who are ethnic minority, whatever they do isn't really of value. You don't deserve to be associated with something that you've created because a white person has either renamed it or used it for their profit. And you are not a Korean man. No matter how much surgery you do, no matter how much of the aesthetic you adopt.
Nobody can take away what a minority group has been through. But I think when we do combine cultures, and millions of people now do almost adopt a lot of the Korean cultural aspects, because through K-pop or K-drama they love it so much they then start adopting those, whether that's the hairstyle, whether that's the fashion style, whether they want to go and live in Korea. We all have the right to choose how we identify, to be who we want to be. I'm Korean, you know, people need to accept that.
Stop. So I thought it was really funny that he talked about Korean hairstyles. You have an African hairstyle on your head. It's like Inception. It's an appropriation of an appropriation. So you are appropriating Koreans that are appropriating Black American culture, and you're calling it Korean. That's white privilege right there. The negligence. That's what white privilege looks like. The audacity. And so I said this in this in the previous video, but I'm gonna have to repeat it anyway. But my thing is, like, he's not even appropriating, or he's not even immersing himself in authentic, historic, truthful Korean culture. He's appropriating, or he's immersing himself in Korean pop culture, which is a replica, which is an appropriation of American culture. So he, as a British man, he's taken, and it's like he's living in freaking the Matrix or something. Like, he's appropriating an appropriation of something. It's like, dude, if you're gonna, and that's my problem with a lot of transness, it's this attachment to superficial things, you know, the aesthetics, the superficialities of what it means to be whatever it is. That's my issue with transness. And I'm not coming for transgender people, because I appreciate transgender people. But my thing is, even with transgender folks, like a lot of the men, I won't say the transgender women, a lot of times they're more interested in the superficial aspects of being a woman, being pretty, having big boobs, having a big butt, wearing makeup, and all these other things. But what about the roots of being a woman? What about the truth about being the woman? What about the authenticity of being a woman? What about the hardships of being a woman? Do you immerse yourself in those things? Do you acknowledge those things? Do you appreciate those things? It's one thing not to have your period, but do you do anything to acknowledge the pains that women go through, right? And that's my question for trans people. But with him, and I have no issue with trans people. I accept trans people. I accept you as a trans man and woman. I accept that, right? And I understand that some people don't. I do. But my thing is, don't expect other people to accept you. Now, with this transracial man, he's appropriating trans Korean culture, the superficial aspects of Korean culture with his, I saw him, he had like this K-pop look in another photo I saw. He had all these surgeries. He's only appropriating the superficial aspects of being a Korean person. I've been to Korea. I said this in the other video. I've been to Korea. When I travel anywhere, I immerse myself in that culture fully, right? I immerse myself in that culture. And when I went to Korea, I made sure to go and meet traditional people. And people were complaining to me about how Korea has changed, because Korea changed rapidly in the past, I want to say 30 years, it's completely developed and changed, right? And it's like they're trying to wash away their historic truthful culture. And there's a lot of like Korea that is replicating American culture. And I was speaking to some of the traditionalists who were talking about this modern Korean thing. They don't like it because it's not authentic. It's just a copycat of America. Koreans are obsessed with America, even though they have their own very popular K-pop situation going on. It's definitely a replica of what's going on in America. And this Korean person, this traditionalist, was talking to me, and he was young. He was like 21. He was explaining to me how like they're just kind of washing away our culture, our historic, our traditional culture and values. So he was talking about that. So I think it's very interesting to watch this English man appropriate a culture, and he's appropriating the pop culture part of Korean culture, not the authentic, truthful Korean culture. And that to me is quite interesting. But I want to keep going.
I think your skin color has a lot to do with everything you're doing. I think we need to recognize that white supremacy is a global issue. What you are essentially saying is that you can change your race, and you can't change your race. And I think if you don't recognize that power imbalance in what you're doing and how it's disrespectful to me, you're just kind of proving the point that you're doing this for money and attention.
No, I agree with that. Every person that was, born Asian, they do go through these struggles. But I understand what you're saying in terms of white privilege. I've never had that experience, But I am not one of those people. I am completely different. So I don't like to be put in the same category as someone like that. I understand some people might get offended by what I do, but I'm not actually going out there doing bad things. I'm not doing anything to hurt people. I'm just living my truth. I'm doing what makes me happy.
So you identify as queer, right?
Non-binary.
Mm-hmm. Non-binary, okay, I'll recognize that.
Thank you.
So if you...
So here's the thing. Right? I think it's really interesting, and I wonder, and I recognize transness, I recognize non-binariness. I think, is he being a rebel? Is he just saying, the world has said that I'm a man, the world has said that I'm white, and he's kind of like, no, I reject all of it, and I'm going to decide who I want to be? Because he's not only not accepted his birth, or how would I describe it? His birth as a man, or his natural, the nature of him, which is a man. He's also rejected his whiteness, which is all these things were given to him by nature. And it's like he's rebelling. And then you have to ask questions. Where is this rebellion coming from? You have to look into his history, his childhood, his growth, his, upbringing. Why is he rebelling every aspect, his gender, his race, and what else is he rebelling against? It's quite interesting, because I'm not one that conforms to societal norms. I don't. I feel like, again, a lot of what he's saying, I agree with it. This is your life. You probably only have one to live, unless you believe in multiple lives. You probably only have one life to live. So live it to the best of your ability. Live it the way that you want to live it. And if you're privileged enough to live, in the West or in countries that are wealthy enough to allow you that freedom to be who you want to be, why would you not do it? So I have no issue with him taking on Korean culture. Again, my thing is, don't expect other people to accept you. And two, understand that you are privileged. Not only are you privileged enough to live in the West and live in, a country that allows you to do whatever you want. There's freedom of speech and freedom of action in a way, as long as you're not harming anyone. But also you're privileged because you're white, and you're taking it to the next extent of your privilege. So it's almost like, and I don't want to call it jealousy, but I wonder if people are like, it's the way that people are jealous of the spoiled rich brat, that like gets everything she wants or he wants and lives life however he wants to live. I think in a way, just at least to me, it's like acknowledge your privilege, acknowledge that, and that's what's important, right? Let's keep going.
You as a non-binary person are adopting the culture of a minority in a minority, because we know that the queer experience in Korea is,
It's very difficult. That's why I was speaking up, and actually I helped a lot of people by doing that.
What you are doing is really giving white savior, like it really is, because you seem to think that you can adopt the oppressions of minorities.
She's just giving, like, right now she just seems like she's a little upset with him, maybe for a few of the reasons I mentioned. She made some very interesting points, because he's now a minority of a minority, right? Not only is he, like, because in Korea they do not accept LGBTQIA plus, they're not, liberal about that, and he might come across because of his whiteness. They might listen to him talk about it because of his whiteness, and that's a place of privilege, right? And so when she's saying you're giving white savior, I wouldn't go that far. I feel like she's getting heated up because she wants to communicate something, and she wants him to accept what he's saying. And it's so funny because she's almost doing exactly what he's doing, right? He's like, I'm this, accept me. And she's like, you're not this, accept me. And it's kind of like, both of you, nobody has to accept anything. Everybody has the freedom to think and believe whatever they want to think and believe, right? That's the way I see it. So leave him to do what he wants, leave her to not agree, and mind your business. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Let's keep going though.
What do you think you can do as someone who is so far removed from that experience? These people are fearing for their lives.
So do you think it's better for no one to say anything and speak up for these people? I'm speaking up for these people. I'm trying to help these people.
You center those who are affected. You don't center yourself. And that's my problem with you.
Boy, it's better than doing nothing. What do you do? What do you do to help people around the world?
You can't ask me. You don't get to ask me whether I go to protest or
but
what I
then
do.
you're criticizing me for doing something which I'm actually helping a lot of people. And
You think you're helping people by taking a picture? You don't get to question me, and I'm not even going to entertain.
Well, you don't get to question me.
Yes, I do. Well, I just did. So what's up?
Well, why can't I question you?
Because I think you're not questioning me because you want to understand what I go through or what I'm doing. You're questioning me because you want to try and find a hole in what I'm saying.
I feel like there's a flaw in both of their arguments. I see where both of them are coming from. I feel like she's just getting heated for no reason. Like, he's pretty relaxed. Maybe that's how she communicates, which is fine. But I feel like she's just getting heated for no reason. He doesn't want to accept what you're saying. You don't want to accept what he's saying. Agree to disagree on this. That's just what it is, right?
So I understand exactly what you're saying. No one can take away someone's lived experience. But I do feel we're at a time in history where we can embrace other cultures. You know, it's great to be multicultural, it's great to be diverse, and of course people do appropriate cultures, but for me, I'm appreciating other cultures, and I feel that is a good thing, and I think that will help break down cultural barriers.
A lot of people say, oh, we're at a different stage in society now. We're really not. We're not far removed. We've had BLM and Asian hate all in the same year. If that can happen at this point, we haven't really made progress as a society enough for all of us to say that we can be transracial, or we can swap races, or we can adopt aspects of one's culture without causing them harm or without their permission. There's a way you can interact with a culture without disrespecting or disregarding their lived experiences. I engage with Korean culture, but I will always be a black woman, period.
That's an interesting way to put it. You know, what's the difference between engaging in someone's culture and immersing yourself in someone's culture and appreciating it versus claiming ownership of it? Ooh, I just saw something, because is this in a way he's like, is this like a colonizer complex? You know, this claim of ownership of Korean culture, like ownership of being or of participating in it. You know, is that what's going on? Because it's like, it's giving colonizer, right? But I see where both of them are coming from. I see where she's coming from. I see where he's coming from for sure. But it's very interesting. She's made some very valid points. He's made valid points about himself. But what is really going on with you as an individual? That's really the question. And do you have a colonizer complex? Let's keep going. Let's see the verdict.
I don't think he understands my lived experience. To me, transracial is not a real thing.
I respect people that have a different opinion. They might not agree with me. Nothing has changed. I still identify as transracial and Korean. I will always identify this way.
I am proud of how I stood my ground. Whatever excuse Ollie came up with, I was able to dismantle it, and I think that's very important.
So here's my issue, why she felt like she needed to dismantle his perspective. To me, it's like she just doesn't agree with him and she wants to force that on him. And I'm just like, let it go. It's not your business. Mind your business. Have the conversation. You know, I would have taken that opportunity, and everybody's different, right? But I would have taken that opportunity to have a conversation with him and really understand what is going on in his brain that makes him think like this. Like, what was his childhood like? Why do you think like this? What is it about Korean culture that you connect with? These are the questions I would be asking him instead of rejecting him and combating him, right? And I completely understand how most people that will consume that will immediately take her side and call him crazy or whatever. But I tend to just kind of like, look, if anybody wants to, as long as you're not harming anyone, live the life you want to live, be the person that you want to be. That is your business. It's nobody else's business, and I don't think rejecting him and being combative towards him is right. But I do have questions. I have deeper questions. I would love to have a conversation with him and go deeper about this to understand, is this a colonizer complex? Are you being a rebel? What else that was given to you by nature do you feel that, or are you rejecting, and do you want to transition out of? These are the questions that I want to ask him. These are the things I want to understand from him, because something's going on here. Something's going on here. It's interesting. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. You're watching the Kenim O Show, and I'm your host, Kenim O. See you next time. Peace.